What's going on, y'all? Thanks for checking in the Khaliis Take. You know what to do. Hit that like, subscribe button. Also hit that notification bell just so you can get the newest and the bonus content first. But hey, let's just go ahead and jump right in. When I talk about a secret weapon that goes unnoticed for the Clippers, or that's going unnoticed right now, I'm talking about Norman Powell. And I know a lot of people know who Norman Powell is and things like that, but I don't feel like he gets the credit he deserves in regards to his basketball IQ and how much he can help a team. Because when you look at how this guy plays and the way he plays and his way of scoring and how he goes about his business on the floor, you got to give him a lot of credit, because he's not even one of those role players in the league that a lot of people talk about as in, he can help you possibly, win a championship and, definitely give you good things in the playoffs in big moments. And Norman Powell can definitely do that. And a lot of media don't speak on him like that, probably because he's been on losing teams his last couple years with the Trailblazers. And, a lot of people didn't expect nothing much out the Clippers this year. So, when he did get traded there, it was a big trade. But it was more or less a big trade in some people's mind and not many, because there was no PG, there was no Kawhi. So it's like the trade really didn't have as much value to some as others. So I definitely understand that. But when you think about what this guy brings to the team, he brings a level of intensity on both ends of the floor, because just you look at him last night coming back against the Phoenix Suns. He played very well. He scored 24 points off the bench, and he played to a level where it's almost like he did when he had his debut game, I think, against the Bucks about a month ago or something like that. And he had 28 points that game. So it's like when you look at his ability to be able to score and score efficiently the way he does, which a lot of people don't pay attention to, his scoring efficiently helps the Clippers play on another level, because he allows their offense to flow better even when Paul George isn't shooting a great percentage. And that's exactly the secret weapon part about Norman Powell's game. Because he's a role player, he still can put up a lot of points, but he can also put up a lot of points efficiently. He doesn't really shoot. He doesn't really have too many games where he shoots inefficient. I mean, there are games, of course, where he has those, just like every other NBA player, but he doesn't have them often, because he always picks and chooses his spots. If you notice, when he's on the floor and when he plays that way all the time. And that's what we call high IQ basketball players. Pick and choose your spots, when to score, take high percentage shots, and don't gamble too much on defense. And that's not something that Norman Powell does too much, as far as gambling on defense. But he will play defense to a level to where it's effective, but he won't try to do nothing too much that will put the team in harm's way of letting the other team score. And, it throws off their rhythm, what I'm saying? So Norman Powell is definitely a high IQ basketball player when it comes to things like that. And that's exactly what the Clippers need, especially until they get Kawhi Leonard back. I mean, not saying Norman Powell can take over Kawhi Leonard's spot, because he can't do that. But what he can do is do the efficiency part. One thing people always notice about Kawhi Leonard, he can lock up a superstar really well, play outstanding defense, and still give you an efficient 30 on the opposite end, where he's shooting like 12 for 16 from the field and he has like 35 points. Kawhi Leonard can do stuff like that, and not every superstar can do that consistently over and over and over the way he does, which makes him one of the best players in the league. But Norman Powell, coming off the bench, or however Ty Lue decides to use him when the play-in tournament starts, he definitely can give the Clippers 20 plus points a game with efficient shooting and, cause some turnovers and play some hard, grinded out type defense, because he definitely gives full effort on defense. Even though he's not the best defender in the league, he definitely gives full effort every time he's out there. He doesn't cheat you. So he definitely like that about him. And, not for nothing, gotta add Robert Covington to this mix too. He definitely could be their secret weapon as well, because we saw him put up 43 points just a few nights ago, and we both, and we all know that both players, have value. But Robert Covington's value really is more on the defensive end than the offensive end, which makes the Clippers even tougher as a team when you play against them, because now they got some other defenders to throw at you and some other people to throw at you that you might not be expecting to guard you when you're actually having a good game when you're the opposing team. And that's what opposing teams are going to have to worry about when they play the Clippers. You're going to have to worry about different guys guarding you who can really defend at a high level. Robert Covington can defend at a high level. Terrence Mann can defend at a pretty decent high level. And then, of course, you got Paul George on the floor who can defend at a high level. So it's like when you look at those three players in its own, that's a problem. But then what about you look at somebody like Nicholas Batum? He could defend at a high level as well. Marcus Morris can as well when he's engaged, whenever that is. But still, it's the truth. I mean, they have some high quality defenders and they got some great knockdown shooters. So it's going to be tough to knock them off, whoever plays them in the play-in tournament. And if they get into the actual playoffs first round, it's going to be tough whoever plays them in a 7-game series. So when you look at Norman Powell and what he brings to the team, he brings a level of IQ that this team needs to help get them over the hump and at least get them past the play-in tournament, I believe, because he can be that second or third best scorer that they need. Because at times, Reggie Jackson looks like he just gets tired to me. At times, Reggie Jackson kind of seems like he flails out just a little bit, but he finds his way back at some point, which is always good. But I feel like Norman Powell is more of a consistent type scorer that they'll need going into the postseason, because the way he scores is more efficient and he's not all about the flash play. When I look at Reggie Jackson at times, Reggie Jackson still shows a lot of flash in his game. Like, he's and one, or like he's a Harlem Globetrotter or something like that. The Clippers don't need that all the time. When it comes to playoff basketball, we need somebody who can put the ball in the hoop. And we know Reggie can do that. We know he can. But we also know Reggie can also go through his cold spells as well, which that's okay, because like I said, they got Norman Powell. They got a guy who can make up for the points that Reggie Jackson doesn't score. Whether they decide to let Norman Powell play in the starting lineup in the play-in, or whether they let him come off the bench, either way, I look at Norman Powell almost like a player back in the day that used to play for the Dallas Mavericks, Jason Terry. Norman Powell can come in the game just like Jason Terry used to and come in and drop 20, 30 points easily and do it consistently every night. I mean, with no problem. And he could play pretty good defense on the other end. Now, Jason Terry wasn't good on defense, but at the same time, my point is, when you got a guy who can come off the bench and potentially drop 20 plus points a game, that makes your offense way more lethal, and it gives your superstar players more time to breathe when they sit down and take a rest, because they know that they could put the offense in this guy's hands for a little while and they could sustain the lead, or, keep the game afloat until the superstar comes back in, or your superstars come back in, however many you have, and come and finish the game off. And I think that's something big for the Clippers, very, very huge. And that's why I say Norman Powell is the secret weapon that they have that a lot of people are really not talking about. And when I say that, he's a secret weapon that they have that people mention, like, oh, Norman Powell's coming back, or he's come back from a foot injury, but you never really hear them mention too much about how effective this guy really is. So my thing is, he's probably one of the best role players in the NBA, if you ask me, because what he could do on both ends, I mean, he does it at a high enough level to help a team win. I mean, he's definitely one of those role players you want to have if you're a contending championship type team. And that's what the Clippers are. And Norman Powell was actually saying last night that this team kind of sort of reminds him of the Toronto Raptors team. They got guys, big guys in the paint, who can move their feet a little bit. You got guys who can get you double doubles. You got, big, a lot of size in the paint, with Zubac and Hartenstein, who got, good feathery touch around the rim, just like Marcus Gasol had, and Serge Ibaka. Even though they're not quite on their level, but still they play kind of similar to those players. And, you look at the supporting cast, himself, other players on there, Terrence Mann, all them, Luke Kennard, guys who can knock down shots, and then you could look at Paul George, kind of like, he's the second best player like Siakam was on Toronto, and then Kawhi being Kawhi. I mean, they definitely can make a run for a championship, even though I would say Paul George definitely is better than Siakam, I would say, just because Paul George has been in the league longer and he's more of a star player. But my point is, they look like the Toronto Raptors, and that's what, Norman Powell mentioned, because this team kind of reminds him of that. And I can see how. They got defenders, they got, big men in the paint who are valuable, and they got 2 perimeter defenders who plays defense and who can score at any time. They got Norman Powell, Robert Covington. They got a lot of pieces, man, that could really, really hurt a lot of teams. And this is the reason why I said when they added Powell and Covington, they really made a huge adjustment to their team offensively and defensively, because even if, let's say, Robert Covington is off this game and not shooting well from the 3-point line, if he's off, his defense makes up for his offense, because he's more known for a defensive player than an offensive player. And if Norman Powell is, getting, killed by his defender, well, that's okay. He comes off the bench anyway, but he mainly comes in to score, and he still can make some defensive plays, but his offense can make up for some of the defense that he might not have that night or that specific night that he's playing. So it's almost like Covington and Powell kind of factor each other out in a way, because if one is not scoring, the other one's playing defense. If one of them is not playing defense, the other one is playing at a high level. And if both of them are scoring and playing defense, well, it's going to be even tougher to beat them, along with the other supporting cast that they have. So it's like when you look at this team, they're definitely well balanced, well rounded, especially when they get Kawhi Leonard back. I just don't see no team really contending with this team. And then, like I said, I'm hoping and I believe that they'll get Kawhi Leonard back in the first round of the playoffs. And at least that's what's projected for him to come back. I do believe he will try to make a comeback then. Norman Powell was saying last night how good Kawhi Leonard feels in regards to just playing and, moving around, being mobile, shooting around, taking, hard steps towards getting back. So it definitely gives you encouragement there. And the main thing with the Clippers is they got to find their way out the play-in tournament, because, you got to crawl before you walk. You don't want to speak too much about playoffs and all the other stuff before you even got out the play-in tournament. It's still going to be tough. It's not going to be easy, because like I said, one game, winner take all, that type of mentality going into a tournament like that. If you have that mentality, which all teams in that tournament has that mentality, it's going to be a rough ride no matter who they play. You're going to get the best out of everybody no matter who they play. So, even if they had to play the Spurs in the play-in tournament, it would be a tougher game than what people think, because the Spurs are well coached. And if they do have DeJounte Murray back, even though they ain't had in the last couple games, look at what they've done the last couple games without DeJounte Murray. They've scored like 140 points, 130 something points, and they did it with no problem. So it's like, no matter who they play in the tournament, it's going to be tough. But I think the Clippers are more than prepared for it, having an extra added piece or pieces like Covington, especially a piece like Norman Powell, who I think is going to be a huge secret weapon for them in the tournament / playoffs, because he's going to give them a lift at times, even when Paul George is struggling offensively, because Paul George is going to have those type games where he shoots 6 for 20. That's just who Paul George is. I've learned to accept that about his game throughout the years. He is a really, really great player. He's always been, really good player. He always has been that, but he's always had games and moments in big playoff games and playoff stretches, I would say, where he goes 6 for 20, 5 for 15, stuff like that. And he still gets his 20, 25 points. But when you're shooting that poor and not efficient on offense, a lot of times you usually lose, because if you're the star player shooting like that, it usually trickles down to the rest of the team and how they play. But hopefully that changes this year, because they're going to need all they can out of Paul George, especially without Kawhi not being there to maybe make up for some of his issues on offense there, and some of his issues on defense as well too, because I think Luka kind of exposed a little bit of the Clippers last year, until Kawhi Leonard just locked him down and said, I got him. I'll guard him the rest of the way, and I'll shut this series down the way Kawhi Leonard did. So if they have to hypothetically play somebody like that in the first round after they get out the play-in tournament, it's really going to be tough this year, especially if they don't have Kawhi Leonard, because now you don't have nobody to rely on to take over that, just to dominate and take over a game. But hopefully they have hopes and dreams, of course, that Kawhi will definitely come back, and I believe he will. So do a lot of the rest of the NBA world, because we feel like Kawhi Leonard wants to win for this team so bad, not only because he's back at home, but because he really likes this team, I feel like. And he basically spoke on those type things in media day about not really feeling that injured, feeling okay, feeling like he can he really wants to try to make a return this year if he can, if possible. So, I mean, with that type of attitude that Kawhi gave us, we definitely have high hopes for him coming back, and definitely, our prayers up for him, recovering to, as speedy as quickly as he can to make a return on the floor, especially going into this playing tournament. Because like I said, going into this situation this year, if you look at the teams, the Clippers definitely have the advantage over every team in the NBA if they're healthy. I don't think no team could beat them in a 7-game series if they're healthy, with Kawhi and PG, with the supporting cast they have, and I don't think no team in the Eastern Conference could beat them in a 7-game series for the NBA championship. I just don't see that if they're healthy. So, I mean, we definitely hope for good things to come out of that, but I definitely think having somebody like Norman Powell is going to make life a little bit easier, especially for Paul George. Having somebody like that who can come off the bench and give you 20, 30 points, on any given night. That's going to allow Paul George to have more flexibility on offense, along with Reggie Jackson and Marcus Morris, who can stroke from the three as well, who can get hot as well. So, when you look at this team, they're definitely going to be a dangerous team going into the tournament, even without Kawhi Leonard. But when they do add him back, I just think that almost makes them unbeatable, especially based upon all the teams I'm looking at this year and how all the teams are constructed. But hey, that's my take on everything. You leave any comments in the comment section as always. And hey, Cali out.